our life.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the SC by SC 2021. Yeah, and my name is Elaine Lockman. I am the moderator for this session, and today's this afternoon session for the specific session. The topic that we'll be covering is Islamic Fintech, a key enabler for the Islamic digital economy. Yeah, this session is brought to you together with SC and also the Malaysian digital economy, MDEC. Yeah, and in this session, we will be exploring the roles of Islamic Fintech as one of the key enablers of the Islamic digital economy, or in short, IDE, and how this can elevate Malaysia's unique value proposition to the global space. The panel will also be discussing the innovations that can happen in this space and the market opportunities that lie behind this USD 3.2 trillion economy. And joining me this afternoon is three esteemed gentlemen. So I was just commenting that there's no ladies. So I expected this to be a more inclusive panel, but it's all right. So I guess I'm representing, the ladies. And we have with us this afternoon, Tengku Danny Nasaifuddin Muzaffar. In short, Danny, yeah, the CEO and founder of Microleap. We also have Wan Zulkifli, the CEO of Ethis Malaysia. And last but not least, Encik Muhammad Hafiz Jamaluddin, the head of Halal Integrated Platform, HIP, from the Halal Development Corporation. Yeah. So before we get on to the discussion proper, let me just give a little bit of preamble to our discussion. So the Islamic digital economy is in reference to technology-related economic sectors that is either Sharia compliant or Sharia neutral. Apart from catering to the needs of global Muslims, which currently stands at 1.9 billion, those wanting an ethical alternative in financial and services will benefit from the Islamic digital economy. Islamic Fintech played a vital role in driving the IDE agenda. According to Dinar Standard's Global Islamic Fintech Index 2021, Malaysia ranks first in terms of market maturity and stands among the top 5 Islamic fintechs markets based on transaction volume. All right, so let's now hear from the three panelists. And I guess before we get on to the discussion proper, also perhaps can I invite each and every one of you to introduce yourself, your business, and especially in relation to the Islamic digital space. Can we start with, say, Danny?
Yeah, hi, my name is Tengku Danny. I'm the founder and CEO of Microleap. Microleap is a Sharia-compliant and conventional P2P or peer-to-peer financing platform. We are regulated by the Securities Commission, and basically we help our issuers or borrowers raise Sharia-compliant financing, but not from a bank, but by our investors, which are people like you or me, retail people or the crowd who'd like to invest or lend into a business.
Thank you, Danny. Over to you, Hafiz.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Hafiz. I'm actually head of Halal Integrated Platform. It's a month-old platform. It was launched on the 9th September. So the purpose of Halal Integrated Platform is actually to host the halal ecosystem, whereby we invite industry players such as Microleap and Ethis and the rest to be in one platform, and that's where we connect everyone together in one halal ecosystem.
Thanks, Hafiz, for that. And Des, can I call you Des? Yeah. Des, over to you. Des, over to you.
Thanks, Elaine. Hello, everyone. So my name is Wan Dazrik, or Des for short. I'm currently the Chief Executive Officer for Ethis. I'm also regulated or recognized under Security Commissions to do equity crowdfunding. That is Sharia compliant. Our vision and mission basically to circulate good in the capital market, to serve where there's underserved or unbankables through crowdfunding. Yeah, that's pretty much it for now.
Thank you. Thank you to the three of you. Okay, let me start with the first question. Okay, so let's look at the current landscape of Islamic fintech in Malaysia. And I would like to get the views from each of you on what do you think, or what in your view, what is the current state of Islamic fintech in the country at the moment? Can we start with Danny?
Yeah, I think you quoted Dina Standard's global Islamic fintech report saying that Malaysia is #1 in the world, basically for Islamic fintech growth and Islamic fintech conduciveness. I think I tend to agree on that. I mean, definitely we have kind of regulators for us under the Securities Commission, and of course under BNM, pushing for Islamic finance and Islamic fintech. So I think that in regulatory terms, we are there. I think we're still very young in terms of Islamic fintech. Mostly when people think of fintech, normally it's the conventional kind. But I think Islamic fintech is growing, and there's definitely a need in Malaysia for it.
Thanks, Danny. Des, your views, please.
Yeah, I share the same sentiment with what Tunku Danny have mentioned. I think we're still at the nascent stage, to be honest. But I think we know, I think around the table here, we know that there's a lot of potential yet to be unlocked in the space. If I could just share, I think a lot of us probably be aware, and I draw back to the year 2016, for example, when we say Islamic digital market, contributed around 80% of the GDPs. In fact, I think it has been forecasted if the halal industry specifically, have an export worth value of RM56 billion in 2025, right? The question is now is actually how do we get there, right? In fact, between all of us here, we're in the fintech space, right? I think in Malaysia there's about 230 over fintech company, of which there's probably only 10 that is IDE, or rather the Islamic, in the Islamic digital economy, it's probably about less than 5% if you calculate, right? So you're right. I think with all of this potential are there, the question is how do we, pragmatically or strategically unlock that potential, if we are to aspire to become, or continue to become #1 in the Islamic market over the next couple of years.
Thanks for that, Des. Now, coming to you, Hafiz, I think I would like to look at it from a different angle, perspective, because whilst we have all the, Islamic fintech solutions providers, what about the market? In your perspective, is the market ready? Is there demand for such services?
Okay, thank you, Elaine. Yes, from the market point of view, the two things that we are trying to address at the moment when it comes to not just Islamic fintech but fintech as a whole is that with regards to the awareness and the adoption. So when it comes to awareness, if you look at the halal industry, right, most of them are pretty much quite traditional. Some of them don't even go into bank. They don't have bank account, whatnot. So to go to the next step is going to take some sort of effort. But this is the part where we believe that we need to educate, and we need to make sure to ensure that the industry aware of this, because when we introduce fintech, Islamic fintech for specifically to the industry, their eyes are open and they realize that they have alternative. So this is the part where I guess in terms of the awareness itself, we need to really expand what we do. Yes, we do have fintech players, but there is the angle that I guess we need to address when it comes to fintech in Malaysia, the situation in Malaysia.
Thanks, Hafiz, for that. So let's then talk about the ecosystem itself, right? The type of companies and the type of solutions that's involved, right? And I believe that from the same report, we've found that in terms of the type of businesses that's available, in the Islamic fintech providers. So we do have tech, IT, and infrastructure providers. There are players in the blockchain and crypto space. Obviously, there's definitely here, there's crowdfunding and P2P, yeah. There's data and analytics. There's also Islamic enablers. There's a robo-advisory, payment remittance, foreign exchanges, trading and investments, and takaful. So in your perspective, I would like to get a feedback or inputs from each of you. Do you think Malaysia should take a specific position, focus on specific key areas, and take a clear position in? Maybe we can start with Daz.
I'll answer that with yes and no. Yes, in the sense of, an example in the 12 Malaysia plan, for example, right? There was a specific mention with regards to the development of halal industry. Similarly to the CMP3, the Capital Market Plan 3 that was just recently announced as well. And I'm hopeful, in the next budget 2022, the next couple of weeks, there's certain focus of industry, one being the halal industry, whereby fintech or Islamic fintech can push or catalyze the growth of the sector. Why I say no, on the other hand, is actually, I feel that fintech, for example, whether it's P2P, ECF, Sukuk, bond, and stuff like that, are more like an enabler. So regardless whatever industries that Malaysia might want to focus, whether it's tourism, arts, agriculture, IoTs and stuff like that, all of these enablers can actually be used to spur the development of the industry. So that's my view. I think yes, in the sense of, Malaysia, for example, for once, we know we're very good in the halal space. I think there's more to be done in that area. Maybe Islamic fintech or Islamic finance or fintech broadly can actually spur that space. But that's not limiting to just that industry. I believe there's other industry that fintech players or Islamic fintech players can also help spur the movement and growth of the economy, especially when the government are thinking about resetting the economy, social economy agenda and so forth.
Thanks for that, Des. What's your view, Hafiz, in this area?
Right. Okay. This is quite interesting because when we talk about halal industry, most of people will be thinking about F&B. But we need to expand. I mean, halal industry covers wide range of areas. You have F&B, you have pharmaceutical, you have cosmetic, you have food. You have Islamic media, you have modest fashion. So it covers wide range. From my point of view, I think it's good to introduce fintech in the halal industry, and eventually it will trickle out to the the other beyond halal industry. So that is actually my view, and I always believe that fintech is not the only technology that has opportunity in the halal industry, but anything cut across the board. When you talk about technologies, halal industry needs those technology to help to spur the industry. So that's what we believe in HIP.
Thanks, Hafiz. So Danny, I would like to take it from a little bit of a different angle, and I believe you've spoken about this. I've seen read quite a number of your interviews, and I think you feel quite strongly about this. And you speak a lot about inclusion, yeah, and also from the point of view of democratizing, whether it's investments or wealth. But do you think that in terms of Malaysian positioning, it should then look at a broader perspective and look at a more inclusive type of solutions, for the market?
Yes, I think the whole point of being fintech or Islamic fintech is to reach to places that traditional financial institutions cannot reach. We can reach out really to the underserved, the unbanked population for our financial services. Because we are completely online, we don't have to have a branch model that most banks have, so we don't have to spend that much in terms of capex and opex. Instead, we are limited basically by internet connection. So for us, we should look at the inclusivity portion. You want to include everyone. Don't leave anyone behind. But at the same time, I don't want Malaysia to be pigeonholed into a Malaysia is only good at this type of Islamic fintech. If we want to become an Islamic fintech hub, we should be good at everything, be it payments, cross-border, robo-advisor, P2P, ECF. And we should be in a position where Malaysia has homegrown countries going global, or the other way around, having a lot of foreign companies coming to Malaysia and set up base camp here in Malaysia for Islamic fintech. I think that is what we should focus on to become and keep our #1 position in this global Islamic fintech index.
Thanks for that, Danny. Okay, so let's look at from the ecosystem perspective, right? And I would like to look at perhaps some key, probably success factors or potentially key drivers that we could talk about. Yeah. And whether the readiness of Malaysia vis-a-vis perhaps some of our competitors, who are looking at taking a similar position in this space. So just your view on specific to regulatory environment, talent, and also demand in these three elements. Do you think the level of progressiveness and whether we have a facilitative regulatory environment in terms of readiness of talent supply, and if we don't, do we, is there a move or framework to actually prepare the environment for that, and in terms of how do we then build also the demand? Perhaps we can start with you, Danny.
Yeah, I think the regulatory framework is there. It does, especially Securities Commission, they have been promoting some being dynamic in terms of what we can offer to the market. I think it has to be a bit more dynamic and forward-thinking in terms of SC and Bank Negara, but they are on the right step. I think it's a great place to set up your business if you want to set up an Islamic fintech company. Talent pool is there. Definitely, you get a lot of people coming out from Islamic universities, knowing a lot about Sharia. But I think what is lacking in the talent is the tech side. On the tech side, you do get a lot of money flowing into Singapore and other countries, so they're very good in tech. What Malaysia is very good at is in Islamic finance. So we have to find a bridge where Islamic finance and tech comes together. In terms of demand, I think the demand is huge here in terms of requiring Islamic fintech. But more needs to be known that there is Islamic fintech companies out there. That if you want to raise financing, you can do it in a Sharia compliant P2P way or ECF way. You have things with the Halal integrated platform, which I think is a great idea to get everything under one platform. So in terms of demand, I think there will be more demand once people know exactly what Islamic fintech is and what they can do for their company or for themselves.
Thanks for that, Danny. We seem to have lost Des somehow. We hope he'll be back. Yes, his door is at play. Anyway, Hafiz, any thoughts on any of those three key drivers?
Yeah, I mean, I can comment based on the demand itself, because I guess that's where we are. So when it comes to demand, I believe that, like I mentioned earlier, the adoption is something that is a challenge. So not just for fintech company, even for us. So one of the things that we realize that when we engage with the SMEs, with the industry, is that sometimes they don't know what are the benefit that they can actually get from this fintech, because this is something new to them. So this is the thing that we need to address. So the demand is there. It's just that we need to help to create the demand. So this is the part where in HIP, we would like to, in fact, we are working together even with MicroLeap and ITIS to go to the ground and to share with them, look, you can have this, that, and that. Because I remember last week when we had we had a similar talk, with these two panel, MicroLeap as well as ITIS. After that session, I got a lot of feedback from SMEs sharing to us, saying that, hey, look, this is something good. I never know that we have this. So that is when I realized, we need this. It's just that they don't know. So these are the things that the challenge that we are facing on the ground at the moment.
Yeah, I hear you, Hafiz. I think, even to date, right, equity crowdfunding has been around for 6 years.
Yeah.
And P2P now, 4 years, Danny?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we find that we still need to continuously educate and create awareness, because there's a lot of people out there who's totally clueless that these kind of alternative funding channels are available. And just coming back to also Danny's point in terms of our regulators, and our regulators are really facilitative in this space. I must commend the Securities Commission, to continuously engage also with the industry players, to gain feedback and to make sure that whatever guidelines is facilitative and I would say friendly to the industry. Yeah. So we hope that we can get Des back actually, but okay. Moving on. I would like to talk a little bit about, Des, you are back. Des, are you back with us?
Yeah, sorry, apologies. I didn't know what happened.
Okay, I said Murphy's Law decided
Toilet
to...
break.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, we would like to hear your views, Des, on, what your views in terms of the country's readiness. And I think I mentioned 3 specific areas: regulatory framework, in terms of talent, and also the demand base. Your views, please.
I think we're in a good position, to be honest. I think if I could draw back from the GIF report, the Global Islamic Fintech report, I think there were 5 areas that they measured against, right? So 2 of it that you mentioned with regards to talent and regulations. I think the support of regulatory is quite good with SC is being very supportive with regards to the movement of the market demand and supply through players like us, Atta Plus and also Microleap, very consultative, which is good and very conducive. Talent wise, I think there's a lot of agencies or rather private sector or public sector also are dabbling, right? In the case of Malaysia, we speak about MDEC, for example, whereby they champion the Islamic digital economy, enterprises and startups, for example. So there's a nurturing talent on that front. In fact, some of our initiatives also, whether it's accelerator and stuff like that, private and public sector collaborations, there's a lot of promising talents are coming out of that, and also businesses. And the third portion you mentioned about the demand, which is what really involve around ecosystem, infra, and to some extent capital. I think, and maybe like what Sheikh Hafiz mentioned, while all of that infra in place, in fact, if you look into the GIF report, we score quite high on all those fronts. The second in place is actually Saudi Arabia, which is about 7 or 8 points behind us. We're about 83% score, or rather 83 points, then Saudi 70 something, right? I think while all this infra and support are in place, coming back to what all of us here have said, is actually we're still really new, nascent, and the awareness are not there yet at a mass level so that we can actually reap all of these benefits, right? So it's quite promising to see, if we can continue keep our competitive advantage over the next 3 to 5 years. Or does other nations or demographic actually have leapfrogged us if we are not too careful in that sense? Yeah, that's my point of view.
Yeah, I think you raised an interesting point over and above the 3 key drivers that I mentioned. Access to capital. I think access to capital is key. Yes, just to get your points of view, I think perhaps Danny and as well as Des, on do you think there's enough capital out there, or LPs who are or VCs or PEs who are actually interested in investing in Islamic fintech space? Danny?
I think in Malaysia, there's definitely demand and interest from VC companies to look at Islamic fintech. But if you go outside of Malaysia, even if you go to Singapore, They look at Malaysia. The foreign VC companies look at Malaysia as a very small economy. First thing, when you go to VCs in Singapore, I went on these VC dating things once in a while. First thing I ask you is, are you in Indonesia? And we say, not yet. Okay, once you're in Indonesia, you come back and speak to me. They all want us to go to Indonesia, straight away. But I think Malaysia should be as a starting bed for Southeast Asia. One, in terms of fintech, internet connectivity plays a key. Especially when it comes to what is Sharia compliant P2P wants to do. So I think the capital is, if you're just in Malaysia, they're not really going to look at you. But if you have plans to go regionally and then finally globally, then they will be definitely interested.
Des, your views?
I'll attempt to answer that in a different angle, but probably a bit more macro. Tengku Danny, yourself and me, probably this is a good news to be heard, right? Because this morning, the chairman of SC, Datuk said, have mentioned, the take up for crowdfunding itself have exorbitantly grown, right? In the ECF space, Elaine probably a bit more aware. It's comparable to first half of 2020 to 2021.
Last year, just for everybody's knowledge, right? We grew close to 400%.
Yeah.
It was one of our best years in spite of the pandemic, and we see the trend grow, to be similar this year as well. Sorry,
yeah.
Des.
Yeah. So that itself has shown, the capital are there, right? But the question is the penetration or the take up of this, so to speak, capital, right? I think the Kodani have mentioned, how do we actually go to the parts of Malaysia that has not that access, right? A lot of the businesses that we are, I guess, catering are pretty much in the Klang Valley area because they have that infra. But that does not preclude the ones that are outside of the greater Klang Valley, for example, right? So I think, coming back to your questions, I think there's a lot of opportunity to grow, and capital, it's pretty much out there if you know how to get access to it. So the example that Elaine and myself was giving is pretty much through in the CF play, the crowdfunding play. But I'm sure, there's a lot more out there, opportunities to be grabbed if you know where to get it.
Thanks, Des. I want to come back to Hafiz and let's talk about the Halal Master Plan 2030. Yeah, and it mentioned that the global halal market is expected to grow by USD 5 trillion, while Malaysia's domestic growth is estimated to reach USD 113.2 billion. So in your view, can convergence with digital take Malaysia to another level? Your take on this, Hafiz?
Well, we believe that it will. That's the reason why even from now in HIP, one of the things that we want to push is actually to introduce the digital space or the digital technologies to the industry. So, of course, in the past, we have been number one in the halal industry. Now we are number one in fintech, and we hope that both of these industry can converge and both of us can be number one in the world. But one thing that I would like to highlight here is that when we talk about, introduction of technologies, we need to cut across, not just in terms of fintech, but in terms of IR, the adoption of IR 4.0, the IoT, the RegTech and everything, because we need to realize that when people talk about halal industry, the only difference between halal industry and other industry is just the certification. The rest are the same. So whatever that you offer to other industry, you can actually offer to halal industry. It's just that, when it comes to now when we go into Sharia compliance and whatnot, this is where Islamic fintech comes in. So yes, with HIP, of course, as much as possible, we would like to share with our halal industry, the usage of Islamic fintech. But on top of that, whatever technology that can help them to expand their business and to reach that target, 56 million in RMK12, by 2025. So I can see a massive. It is actually a massive opportunities for tech player to tag along in halal industry and grab this opportunity. So that's my view.
Yeah, thank you for that, Hafiz. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned also, essentially it's the halal bit, right? And I think there's also quite a bit of misconception for people, right? To say when they say, oh, we need to be Sharia compliant, then they equate it to costs. To them, it's expensive, yeah. And but I believe at the end of the day, Islamic fintech or fintech actually it makes the process much more, I would say, seamless and quicker. You minimize. There's a lot of business process re-engineering that takes place, right? It makes it more swift. So just a question, to Des and perhaps Danny. Do you get this kind of feedback, right? So when we talk about Islamic or Sharia compliance, and then the issue about costs comes in, so maybe Des?
Yeah, you're right. I think there's a lot of stereotyping or misconception when we speak about Islamic or Sharia, let's say Islamic finance broadly, right? I think fundamentally, when we say about Islamic finance, it's pretty much riding on the concept of adil, justice, and ihsan, which is excellence, right? And I think with I think Tunku Dani have mentioned this, it's about inclusivity, right? I think with Islamic finance, it's really about being just, not just to your investors, but also to your business owners, right? So that's why when we speak about concept of Islamic finance, for example, we try to reduce arbitrary, for example, the concept of riba, not to say you can't do, buy now, pay later kind of concept, right? When we say that, people will say, oh, it's actually riba, it's forbidden, right? But there's other ways of doing it, right? There's the concept of istijra, for example, right? Where you set a certain target. So I feel that, the misconception is actually the greatest blocker in the ecosystem, and then the need to be more of a education, whether it's through, programs, through transaction, through dealings with, the likes of you and I, to educate, new investors, new business owners, and then this is all in the name of inclusivity. So, I think that's, I wouldn't say innovation, but more of an education to the market, basically.
Yeah, Danny, your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, is there a cost to being Sharia compliant? Definitely yes, compared to being conventional. To be Sharia compliant, you have to have Sharia advisors. Some require a Sharia board. In terms of, for us, how we do our Sharia compliant financing, we use commodity murabaha. So there's murabaha brokerage fees. But what we have done is that MyCleap actually absorbs all that cost. So we don't pass those costs to our users, so that when people want to raise conventional and they're within a Sharia compliant industry, we say, look, you're going to be better funded if you switch to Sharia compliant financing. We absorb your costs. There's no difference in costs in raising conventional or Sharia compliant, and people are happy to raise Sharia compliant. So that's how we do it. We absorb the cost. My favorite example is if you look at takaful versus conventional insurance. I tried to get a takaful insurance plan for my staff, and it was a third more expensive than conventional insurance. So there's definitely a cost, but if we can somehow manage those costs and not pass it on to the user or consumer, then you will find more adoption of Islamic fintech and Sharia compliant kind of processes and products.
Thanks, Danny. Hafiz, just wondering, so under HDC and also under HIP, right? Do you actually support the community in terms of costs and a certain cost related to this? Just wondering.
Okay. At the moment, we don't, to be honest, but of course we are looking into that. As much as possible, we would like to. Of course, the most important part is actually to get adoption. So to have that adoption, obviously we need to have to make things much more attractive, because at the end of the day, people will, as a businessman, they will just ask, conventional, why should I go Islamic? Beyond, we need to think about beyond religious obligations, because when we talk about Islamic fintech and whatnot, it's not just for Muslim, for non-Muslim as well. So at the moment, yes, we don't actually absorb any cost, but we are looking into it, and hopefully our collaboration with MDEC, maybe we can help to assist the industry on the adoption itself.
Thanks, Hafiz. Okay, there's quite a number of questions, but we can't take everything. So let's just take about 3 now. So, okay, I have a question here. Okay, the question is, fragmented industry players across sectors is one of the issues in Islamic digital economy. Do you agree with this statement? Any views? Anyone? Volunteers?
A quick answer to that, yes. In fact, I think the IDE program by MDEC, for example, right? I think at the moment there's 45 company listed under the Islamic digital economy, and that's ranging from fintech, property, I don't know, tech and stuff like that, right? But I think, to be honest with you, with what you mentioned earlier, Elaine, the global trends around Islamic, Muslims around the world spend around 2 trillion on whatever that is, food, pharma, lifestyle and stuff like that, right? So if you scale that to Malaysia, 45 is really small, right? And I think because of the questions, it's not because it's fragmented, because it's kind of a demographic challenge to some extent. I also think that is also because of accessibility, whether it's because of digitalization or not there yet in the greater Malaysia. But I agree with that statement. I think the challenge again for us now is actually how do we bridge that gap. I do want to say something back to the earlier question that you posed to Tengku Danny and Hafiz, and also myself earlier. I think one way, and this is coming from the awareness standpoint, one way to shift mindset on this thing around Sharia and stuff like that, perhaps we don't need to look at it as a cost, but rather as an investment, or rather a long-term investment. And I think that would actually help for both issuer or businesses and also investors in the long run. So that is something that I think would be a game changer if we are able to do that well enough.
Yeah, just coming back to the earlier question, right, in terms of the fragmentation of industry players, do you think it's just for among fintech, Islamic fintech, or across fintech industry in general? Danny,
I think my thoughts are, yes, it's definitely fragmented, but that's always good for the consumer, for the user, because that means your costs as a user consumer is very low because you have choice. And because it's very new, and people, new companies are sprouting, you are eventually going to get some form of consolidation in the next 3 to 5 years, which is the more stronger Islamic fintech or fintech players win out, and the small ones have to consolidate into the bigger ones. It's natural. It's what happens. It's what happened in the banking scene, and it's what's probably going to happen in the Islamic fintech scene. But now it's fragmented. Great for consumers. You have choice. You can choose who you like. If you don't like someone, move to the next one. It's a great area to be in.
Yeah, I have to agree with Tengku Danny. In fact, when we do our sourcing in terms of Islamic fintech and even fintech, there's a lot of choices, and of course, we need to bring everyone in. You see, because the pie is so huge that I don't think everyone can cover everything. If we look at if I can share a bit on Islamic banking, because we work together with Islamic banks, right, in Malaysia. Even if we have so many Islamic banks, they themselves cannot cover the whole halal industry. So imagine, this fragmented fintech players. So I believe, from my point of view, the more the merrier. And in fact, when we have, for example, if you look at Microlip and ETIS, each and every one of them, they have their own, areas that you can focus on. So this is the part where, like Tengku Danny said, the consumer can have choice. So when they have choice, that's where they will choose whatever that is suitable for them. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. one interesting question. Do you think the growth of the ecosystem needs to be in tandem with regulatory framework, the progress in regulatory guidelines, and what are the safeguards for investors? So one of the comments was that a lesson learned when China shut down or became stricter, with regards to P2P and crowdfunding in general. Yeah.
Yeah, I can start that. Yes, definitely growth should be tempered by regulatory framework. That's why what Securities Commission did in the beginning was to set guidelines and rules first in ECF in 2015, I think it was, and
That's
P2P in 2016.
That's right.
We definitely, I think SC has learned the lessons that happened in China, where they had 1,000 P2P operators. And now, I think last year, China said P2P financing is dead in China. So they closed everything down and switched them into almost a neo-bank or digital bank, basically, where they were under the banking rules in China. So I think you can never have unlimited growth. In Indonesia, in the P2P space, I remember OJK, the regulator, said that if you get financing from an unregulated P2P financing operator, you don't have to pay them back. And this is from the regulator themselves, So I think we have to follow the rules of the regulator, which is why it's very key to have a very forward-thinking and pro-technology regulator like Securities Commission, who will help out, who's actually helping us, Ataplas, Ethis, and Microleap to go forward. So definitely we must follow the rules, but at the same time, give us the room to be, to have a bit of technology know-how and be dynamic.
That's right. I think the innovation is very important. Des, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I can only emphasize on what Tengku Danny have mentioned, being proactive, give the practitioners or industry players a bit of nimbleness or agility to explore and to expand. But I also wanted to emphasize on what Tengku Danny have also mentioned about the foresight. I think that's really going to be key to make us competitive in the long run. So for an example, right, if I could just point out, I think this morning was reported by the chairman also, the 60% of investors in the crowdfunding play, ECF or P2P, is actually the ones that are below 35 years old, right? Now, if you're a regulator, you might want to see, okay, what opportunities that I can do to catalyze further investment from this demographic, right? Whether it's incentives, co-investments, tax, whatever that may be, right? And I guess this has not just need to be done by the regulators, but also, what we call the whole government or whole society approach, right? Consultative with investors, with market players and regulators. Together, we shape what does that look like. And alhamdulillah, I think so far, like Tengku have mentioned, SC has been very supportive on the end, but not just SC, but other agencies, ecosystem players, private, public sectors, who are also trying to support the growth of the innovation in this space, I think.
Yeah, on that point, I totally agree with you, Des. I think, yeah, the demographic that we should look at is the millennials, the younger generation, because I think amongst my peers, we always say that these are the people who will probably never step foot in or their feet into a bank ever. They probably won't even know what a bank is, and I guess just to give an example, I think when we first participated in our first InvestSmart exhibition years back, we actually gave away Dogecoins. And that time Dogecoins was super low, right? And we say, oh, you can either get Dogecoins or you can get a pin. Oh no, we want Dogecoins, and these are young people, right? And you can imagine now how much the Dogecoins are, right? So yeah, they are a totally different mindset. They are risk takers. So definitely more, I think, more comfortable with this kind of products and services. So I've got questions also related to specific to ECF and P2P. But before I get onto that question, I just wanted to also talk about a little bit more on the HDC side. So again, coming back to the halal report, Hafiz, according to the halal industry report, 2020, more than 1,900 companies are halal certified exporters. How can partner engagements, specifically via industry collaboration, support the My Digital Blueprint target of 5,000 startups? So any thoughts on that, Hafiz?
Right. Okay. This is another interesting thing that I would like to share. A part of the HDC goal to create more exporter in the halal industry, we will also like to support our local technology players. So that's the reason why in HIP, as much as possible, we would like to introduce local startup company. And this is where we work closely with MDEC as well as SC when it comes to fintech, and we like to introduce this to our market because we believe that, you know, of course, on one hand, we would like to groom or to grow our halal industry, but at the same time, we want to use this opportunity to also offer this market to our local digital player, because if we don't support our own industry, who will? So that is actually the mindset that we are, we are setting in our HIP. Now, when you talk about the growth of the industry, this is the part where I would really love to share with everyone. Halal industry is not just fintech, it's not just blockchain. So because everyone is talking about traceability, it goes beyond that. We can talk about e-marketplace, we can talk about online learning, customer experience, RegTech. It covers a lot. Going back to what I mentioned earlier, the only difference between halal industry and other industry is just the certification part and also the that practice. The rest are the same. So I can see there's a lot of potential. And in HIP, we are inviting our local company through MDEC, obviously, through MDEC. And we would like to push these technologies to our SMEs so that they can start adopting our local product. In fact, just to share with you, even HIP is being developed by local companies and local technologies. So that is actually the aspiration that we are, having in HDC at the moment.
Thanks for that, Hafiz. Okay, there's quite a number of crowdfunding questions. Some basic questions, some quirky questions as well. So I'm going to just say them all together, right? And then we can give responses. So, can crowdfunding grow in Kelantan? Okay, I thought that was interesting. Okay.
Wow.
So, okay. Yes, crowdfunding can be anywhere, people, right? Not just in Kelantan, everywhere, right? Okay. Wait, let me just. Okay, for Ethis, this specific question for Ethis, the minimum sum for an investor is 500 ringgit. I assume it's ringgit, yeah? And 5,000 ringgit, thus out of reach for most unbankable person. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's two lenses to that question, right? I think broadly speaking, if you're an investor in Malaysia, commonly we define investor into three categories lah. The first one being the retail investors lah. So retail, you're right. I think the question was saying, when we say retail, is shopping lah, right? So meaning they probably invest in 1,000, 2,000 up to 5,000 ringgit, so to speak. But specifically with regards to the businesses, when we issue stuff like that, right? It really depends on the appetite of the business owners, for example. So to say across the blanket, the amount of minimum 1,000 or 5,000 is quite inaccurate. Because it really depends on the issuers who are looking to fundraise on that front. So yeah, it's not a one-cut straight answer to that one. I'll probably just touch on the other two types of investors just to finish the spectrum. So I spoke about the retail, the smaller one. Currently, the angel investors have the propensity to invest more. The appetite of 6 digits up to million. Under the Malaysian Business Angel Network, you can actually be accredited to some extent, and you get certain incentives if you invest. And the third portion is what we call the sophisticated, the big ones, the PEs, the VCs, for example, that they would actually invest in big amounts, so to speak. So to answer that question, probably a lot of crowd investors are in the retail side. But the amounts vary so much, from thousands to a couple of hundreds to the bigger amounts.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Des said, because there was also another comment. In the USA, we fund accept as little as USD $100 for investment. So just for the benefit of everyone listening today or watching today, the smallest denomination that we have accepted to date in Malaysia, and this goes back to the appetite of the companies that's fundraising, yeah, is 10 ringgit. So we have accepted 10 ringgit investment in Malaysia, and that was for 1 unit share. Okay, it really depends on the issuer. So if they are willing to offer it by per unit share, so be it, because and it's up to the strategy of the company, right? Yeah. Okay, Danny, questions on P2P. How do, and I guess to ECF as well, but I would like you to answer this, Danny. How do Microleap and Ethis reach investors beyond Klang Valley? Is it just in finance, when in credit cards they are charging 18% per annum?
Yeah, so I mean, if reach out of Klang Valley, obviously before our lockdowns and things that we were doing on the ground reach outs. We went together with Securities Commission. We were plans to go together with MDEC on the ground. We have done small of our own on the ground activations outside of Klang Valley. And I think outside of Klang Valley is definitely a target market for Microleap. Everyone is kind of looking at Klang Valley and is getting very what's the word? It's getting jammed up. Everyone wants to go there. But for us, for Microleap, we've actually funded at least one issuer in every state of Malaysia. So be it Sabah, Sarawak, we funded them. We funded even in Kelantan. So whoever was at Kelantan in question, you know, we definitely funded issuers in Kelantan, Terengganu. So for us, as I said before, our reach is only limited by internet connectivity. Okay. Because most P2P and ECF players, everything is done online. You know, you don't have to come to a branch to open an account or get financing from us. As long as you can upload your bank statements or financial statements, then you are good to go.
Thanks, Danny. Hafiz, maybe you can take this question. Okay. Is there a proper halal industry for pork? Since you say it's the same.
To be honest, obviously no, because pork is prohibited.
Non-halal.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the best the best answer that I can give, because obviously,
Yes.
halal is about prohibitions and also religious obligations. So obviously, if you try to disrupt that, then it's not going to work.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Hafiz. There was also a question on is there space for new startups to come in the ECF and P2P market? I would assume that's from two perspectives, whether startups can actually look at ECF or P2P as an alternative funding channel. So I would assume, yes, definitely so, right? Des and Danny?
Is the question saying, is there space for more P2P or ECF players to come on board? Is that
no, exactly. So I'm taking, so there's two angles to look at it. So I'm looking at it from the first angle, which is, can startups actually, go to the ECF and P2P as in as source of alternative funding channels? And yes, you can, obviously, right?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll always be an alternative financing source. We're not as strict as banks, but we are strict in terms of how we credit check a business. But we don't need you have to have 3 years of revenue. You have to show that the revenue is stepping up. We want to basically we want to catch the businesses that fall through traditional banking net, right? So those are the people and businesses that we are trying to help. So yes, there's definitely room for more people to get P2P financing or ECF for sure.
Thanks. Your take on that, Des?
What he said and what you say, Elaine. There's nothing more that I could add on. But yeah, traditionally crowdfunding, like what Tengku Danny have mentioned, I think historically there's a lot of micro, small enterprises. Micro here inclusive of startups. I could just share a bit. I think for ECF specifically, the guidelines at the moment, if you're really new, you must register as LLP or Sri Berhad, that you can raise up to $500,000 ringgit. But if you're slightly more mature, whereby you have audited accounts, still you have to register as Sri Berhad or LLP, you can raise up to 10 million ringgit. But so what that means is actually it caters more to the micro and small enterprises, which predominantly startup space. Yeah.
Okay, and from the other angle, whether new startups can actually be regulated and as an ECF and P2P operator, please talk to Securities Commission Malaysia. So I believe that the best people that who can answer that question. All right.
And make sure you have 5 million ringgit in capital. Yeah. That's
yeah.
it.
For P2P, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. All right. Okay. So before we end today's session, I'm afraid we can go on for another hour, I guess. But I guess what I would like to hear from all the three gentlemen before we leave is that yes, I would like to hear any wish list. Yeah, in terms of where do you see or how do you see fintech and Islamic digital economy evolving into? Yeah, and any wish list that you have. And can we start with Hafiz?
All right. Okay. I guess one of the things that we need to address is actually awareness and adoptions. So this is I may not have the answer, but I do have some sort of insight that maybe Islamic fintech can actually look into. In terms of trying to bring the market the product out there, maybe we can look at how halal certificate and halal industry gone through the journey of the halal industry. Initially it started off because of the religious obligation, and now it has gone beyond that. So even right now, when we talk about halal certificate, right, with you, of course, obviously the first one, it has to be halal. And then the second value added to the halal certificate is actually the product that is safe and clean. So this is another angle where when we go beyond Muslim market, that's where it appeals the other non-Muslim market. So I guess when it comes to Islamic fintech, maybe the industry can actually learn what halal industry has gone through, and maybe how Islamic finance, Islamic bank has gone through the journey of those those two industry has gone through and where they are now. So from there you can actually learn how they actually introduce this product in the industry. So that is actually my wish list. So then it's easier to introduce to our SMEs for them to start adopting.
Thanks, Hafiz. Danny, what about you?
My wish is to see more non-Muslims adopting Islamic fintech. I think a measure of how successful an Islamic fintech company is not by the number of Muslims you have, but the number of non-Muslims you have. Because then it shows there is global appeal. And also because Islamic investments and financing go hand in hand with ethical investments. I think that's the key to get non-Muslims on board. Like for us, for MyCleat, we have Muslim investors and non-Muslim investors as well. So for me, it's to see Islamic fintech not just for Muslims, but for everyone in general.
Thanks, Danny. And last words from you, Daz?
Yeah, very quickly, I think my wish list is to get the Islamic digital economy to a critical mass. I think MDEC also have forecasted for us to get to 21% of GDP contribution in 2022, if not 2023. Also, I think Tengku Danny have mentioned there's a lot of alignment between ethical, sustainable development goals, etc., with Islamic finance, right? If you look at the underlying of it, how do we bridge those two together and get, the whole society to be part of the push of the industry? So yeah, I'm hopeful. And yeah, we get to there, inshallah.
Thank you, the three of you. So with that, we end today's this afternoon session on Islamic fintech, a key enabler for the Islamic digital economy. I hope all of you have enjoyed the discussion. Thank you, Tengku Danny, Hafiz, Wan Dazriq, for joining us this afternoon. And thank you, Securities Commission, as well as MDEC for inviting us to be part of the program. And I hand it over, to the organizers, and hope that everyone will enjoy the next 2 days, the next 2 more days of the conference. Thank you. Have a good day and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, Elaine.
Bye.